let's talk about APIs.
Okay.
Can you kind of explain why API visibility and discovery have become such important topics recently?
If you look at AI, a lot of organizations we talk to are on this path of this AI journey path. They're trying to bring in agents into the organization, MCP servers in the organizations to do this work for them. Have these AI agents act as actual employees or whatever, right? But if you look a step below that. And a lot of focus, of course, is on the LLMs, right? We're all in ChatGPT or Gemini or whatever. But if you look a layer below that, all this communication that's happening is API driven. So the MCPs to the AI agents and the AI agents talking to the LLMs or whatever, it's all AI related traffic or API related traffic. And so we're like, heck, we see the thing happening, and we are there and making sure that organizations understand you want to go on this journey with AI, but you need to make sure that you're securing that nervous system, if you will, of this new world we're in, and that's all API driven. So what's happened is we see these massive increases in APIs in these organizations.
How do you see API security changing as these AI systems become more independent?
And many of the customers we speak to, organizations we speak to, have AI thoughts of AI plans. Not many have fully developed those plans. And so there's still opportunity to make sure that as you're going through and developing these AI, agentic AI plans, that you incorporate security into that. Because sometimes I think the security gets put on the back burner. We're wanting to make sure that we're part of is making sure that you've got that full capability to understand what's happening with AI, what's happening with the API endpoints that are attached to your AI, and then provide that security control, that security mechanism to make sure that they're not as attacked by those folks that are out there.
Welcome to the Security Strategist podcast, where we have a weekly conversation with people impacting the enterprise tech landscape. My name is Richard Stiennon. I'm an industry analyst and author. I advise enterprises, vendors, and investors on the entire cybersecurity industry. In this episode, I'm thrilled to be joined by Eric Schwake, who is Director of Cybersecurity Strategy at Salt Security, for a deep dive on the API visibility crisis, the rise of shadow APIs, and how continuous discovery is reshaping security priorities. Welcome, Eric.
Hey, thanks a lot, Richard. It's great to be with you.
Yeah, Eric, tell us a little bit about yourself, how you got to be the Director of Cybersecurity Strategy at Salt.
Yeah, I've been doing cybersecurity stuff for about 20 years. And so I got an opportunity to come over to Salt maybe about a couple of years ago. Actually, I guess here in a couple of days is going to be my 2-year anniversary here at Salt. I saw a huge need in this space for sort of this API thing. Like, this is sort of that underpinning technology that is sort of connecting so much of what all of us do on a day-to-day basis. And Salt obviously has amazing technology in the space. So I jumped on board when I had the opportunity. It's been a great ride.
Cool. Let's talk about APIs.
Okay.
Can you kind of explain why API visibility and discovery have become such important topics recently?
Yeah, and I think, so obviously we've been doing this since 2016-ish on the cybersecurity journey for APIs. And if you think back, it sort of expanded over time. New things come out. We saw a big increase in the number and usage of APIs around the time microservices became a thing, right? People are using these microservices. All those were powered by APIs. So there's a big increase in those APIs, in that API landscape, API footprint for organizations then. And then what happened is AI, quite candidly, and it's still happening. And if you look at AI, a lot of organizations we talk to are on this path of this AI journey path. They're trying to bring in agents into the organization, MCP servers in the organizations to do this work for them. Have these AI agents act as actual employees or whatever, right? But if you look a step below that, and a lot of focus, of course, is on the LLMs, right? We're all in ChatGPT or Gemini or whatever. But if you look a layer below that, all this communication that's happening is API driven. So the MCPs to the AI agents and the AI agents talking to the LLMs or whatever, it's all AI related traffic or API related traffic. And so we're like, heck, we see the thing happening, and we are there and making sure that organizations understand you want to go on this journey with AI, right? This is what you sort of are trying to do. But you need to make sure that you're securing that underlying, that nervous system, if you will, of this new world we're in, and that's all API driven. So what's happened is we see these massive increases in APIs in these organizations, and even folks we talk to on a day-to-day basis, they're like, yeah, it was a problem before. Like with microservices, it was a problem, right? We had limited visibility sometimes into the microservices world on APIs, and now with AI, it's just 10x, 100x, whatever it is on this API thing. So it's become a massive problem.
Yeah. Is it a matter of, I know that AI is like infiltrating the enterprise, right? It's like, and there are dozens of AI governance solutions that discover
Yep.
AI. But imagine every one of those, agents, or even applications. I mean, you can't use a Microsoft application or a Google application without getting the AI with it. I imagine they come with their AI endpoints and connectors and all the rest.
Yep. No, for sure. Yeah. I mean, all these tools, and that's the thing is I've been at several conferences in the last few months, and you talk to these individuals, and many of them, I mean, it's still a journey that they're on with AI stuff, but
Yeah.
even with like Copilot, right? They're just saying, oh, we're deploying Copilot. Even with that, they've got to understand that what is Copilot doing? What data does it have access to? And it's those APIs in the back end that are actually doing that access, right? And so what are you doing to secure that? Many of the, if you look at the security landscape now from an API or an AI perspective, there's probably hundreds of folks in the space. I mean, it's just from a
Yep.
security vendor perspective, it's huge. A lot of them are focusing on the LLM itself, on sort of that LLM security, making sure there's not injection attacks and different things into that LLM, which is fine. I mean, I think you need that. But like I said, from our perspective, a lot of it is that underpinning, that sort of that nervous system connections in the AI world, and that's where that API thing fits in. And if you don't have that visibility, right? If visibility is the bane of all security. If you don't have the visibility, you can't see what you're trying to protect. You're sort of out of luck. And so we're trying to give that to organizations as we talk to them.
Yeah. The number of AI security vendors that I'm counting just surpassed 320.
Yeah.
So, and that's only new vendors. So even, Salt Security's AI capabilities don't make it in there, right? Because Salt's a mature company.
Yeah, we've been doing it.
Yeah. So from your point of view, what are the biggest challenges that enterprises face today in securing these hidden or bypassed APIs? I mean, where do you start?
Yeah, I think a lot of it goes back, and we've already talked about discovery, right? A lot of it goes back to that just initial understanding of the potential attack surface. This has been how it's been for 20 years. What does your attack surface look like?
Yep.
Because if you don't have a sense of that attack surface, you're not going to be able to protect that attack surface. With AI, it 10x is that attack surface potentially on the API side. And so just getting an understanding of that. And that's sort of where many customers have always been with us when they first start. They're just trying to figure out like, how do I wrap my arms around this problem? And so with AI and APIs and everything else, we really help solve some of that. We can help solve some of that problem. I think another big thing that is pretty important when you talk about this is the governance aspect of it, and just the being able to tie some guardrails around what you're doing, and making sure that once you've discovered something, you can limit or lower its risk in some fashion, form or another, right? You want to make sure that there's not a open big hole that's going to be, hey, attacker, come get me here, right? So once you've done that discovery process and you have a sense of the problem, the scope of the problem, then you can apply governance rules to that, which obviously from an AI perspective helps a lot. From a compliance perspective helps a lot, right? And so I think that's where a lot of folks are starting, and you're just trying to discover and then trying to see, okay, we see the problem now. Let's try and build some governance around that, some rules around that. And so that's what I think the first place a lot of folks want to start.
Yeah. So if you do the discovery, what's the result of discovery? You get a list of APIs that were discovered that you didn't know about before, and then I guess I'm asking just like a vulnerability scanner, what do you do next? How do you find the owner or the user that caused that connection in the first place?
Yeah, I mean, so that's exactly right. So once we see a potential risk, then a big part of it is also understanding sort of who, from a business perspective, is building that stuff out and providing them guidance on how to make sure that they're building it in a proper fashion. I think that's where the posture governance really comes into it as well, their posture management, whatever, however you want to phrase it, right? We talk about posture governance, posture management, whatever, but it's around understanding those risks and then have a feedback loop as well. So it's not just like, hey, we found it, there's a problem, here's some rules around that. We also want to make sure that the development of that potentially business impacting API is secure, but also future development of those is secure as well, right? I mean, I think as we talk through and how AI agents are being used to actually build APIs themselves in organizations, right? That's another big thing, code assistance. So how can you ensure that the code assistant is also crafting APIs and doing that work in a secure fashion? And that's where we want to make sure there's that bi-directional communication of like, hey, make sure you're doing X, Y, and Z, make sure there's authentication tied to these APIs, whatever the case may be. That's a huge part of it as well. And so, yeah.
Tell me how MCP, servers or endpoints, I forget what you call them, tie into this conversation. What's the difference between a model context protocol thing and an API endpoint?
Yeah, so I liken MCP back to the days of TCP, right? It's one of those things that's sort of a foundational layer of how communication or network traffic or whatever you want to call it is happening. Now there's this new thing, MCP, which is very similar to that, is sort of this methodology, if you will, that's fairly new. I think MCP was developed in its early stages, maybe a couple of years ago, one or 2 years ago.
If that, yeah.
Yeah, so exactly. So right, it's still a very new protocol. And it's needed, right? It was needed because it was a thing that had to happen for these AI agents to work appropriately. But what we're seeing is that obviously, and again, if you go back to it, it's all API traffic, right? So this MCP stuff that's interacting between AI agents is all API traffic. But also the thing about MCP is that because it's so new, I don't think we found all the weak points in it. I mean, or we, the attackers, whoever, right? Whoever's going to find the weak points. I don't think it's been fully, attacked in a way that's going to show all these. But what you need to do, again, it comes back to this thing of like understanding that's that potential communication point that you need that visibility into, right? And so if you have that ability to see what's happening and really dig into the traffic, and it's not just a matter of getting this visibility around the API traffic and the APIs that are communicating with your MCPs and AI agents. It's also understanding the actual data that's flowing between that stuff, right? I think that's another huge concern is that, great, we've got MCP, we've got AI agents, they're talking to some backend database. Do we know that? Can we see that traffic and understand if it's sensitive information or whatnot? And if it is, of course, you want to lock it down tighter and that kind of thing. So that's the other big part of this is understanding like the actual data that's being transmitted to these AI agents. But MCP, again, is that foundational sort of underpinning. And if you don't see that MCP traffic, if you don't see that what's happening there, then you're pretty blind to a lot of this AI stuff. So.
Yeah. And so looking ahead, how do you see API security changing as these AI systems become more independent? And, it's almost like the underpinnings of our data exchange internally is going to be out of our hands. Where do you see it going?
Yeah. It's one of those things it's so fast moving. And even over the last 6 to 12 months, things have changed so rapidly that it's like a lot of it's sort of just your finger in the wind and you're hoping that you're doing on the right path. I think what we'll probably see happen is that they're going to see, and like I said, we hear a lot about AI and folks using AI, but when I go and I'm on the floor of a conference or another customer advisory board meeting or whatever it is, many of the customers we speak to, organizations we speak to, have AI thoughts of AI plans. Not many have fully developed those plans. And so there's still opportunity to make sure that as you're going through and developing these AI, agentic AI plans or whatever, that you incorporate security into that. Because sometimes I think the security gets put on the back burner. Oftentimes it's like, hey, it's a business driver. We've got to go fast. We've got to run quick. And AI is a way to do it. And so you just, you send your teams to do it, but you're not really conscious necessarily of the full security implications of that. And so I think there's still time because I think some organizations are a little hesitant. They don't necessarily want some machine just accessing their data. So there's still opportunity there. And I think that's one of the things that we're wanting to make sure that we're part of, is making sure that you've got that full capability to understand what's happening with AI, what's happening with the API endpoints that are attached to your AI, and then provide that security control, that security mechanism to make sure that they're not as attacked by those folks that are out there. And so I think one of the things that I talked a lot about is just keep your ear to the net, and because we're seeing more and more actual AI related attacks. I think in the last couple of weeks, I've actually seen a couple that have come through that are very, very focused that way. So just that understanding to, just to make sure you're aware of these things happening is really important. So
absolutely. So if you could summarize one takeaway in 60 seconds from our conversation for CISOs, what would it be?
I think from a CISO perspective, really make sure that you are engaged as early as possible with these projects. I think what we might see is folks just on the edges or in other departments or whatever spinning up these AI projects. So I think from a CISO perspective, be as engaged as possible, or as early as possible as well. Just understand what's happening, what's important to the business, and from there you can really build out a security architecture, a security view of how you're going to secure that. Now, of course, from Salt's perspective, a lot of that's API related, right? So make sure that you've got some kind of mechanism in there for that. But even more broadly than that, just have your arms around these projects that are coming up from an AI perspective, because I think that in the future will be a massive source of risk that CISOs need to account for. And so that's my biggest thing, is just to get in there as early as possible, be part of those discussions, make sure that they're just not running 1,000 miles a minute, not thinking of security. As that CISO, you're that voice that says, hey, I want to make the business be successful. I want to run it as fast as possible. We also want to make sure that it's as secure as possible. So,
absolutely. Thanks so much, Eric, for joining us today. We really appreciate you taking the time to come on. And thank you to everyone listening. We hope you found today's episode valuable and took away some great insights. For more information on what we talked about, feel free to visit salt.security. We'll be back next week with another episode in our podcast series. In the meantime, don't forget to subscribe on all major platforms and join the conversation on our socials at EM360Tech on Twitter and LinkedIn. For even more great content, visit us at em360tech.com.